semifinals continue tonight at the Chick-fil-A Peach Bowl.
Oh, I can't wait. Look, Indiana has been dominant all season long, undefeated, and the only team to win in the college football playoff when coming off a bye. That's this year and last year. And that game was against Alabama in a game that was not close, like ever. Now they are one win away from the national championship game. But a date with Oregon happens tonight, a rematch, if you will. And if IU does not make the title game, or better yet, win it, would we consider this season now a disappointment? Cam?
Yeah. Well, I'll go back to what RC had said earlier in saying that the Miami Hurricanes is probably the most similar team to SEC. I disagree with that, and I'll say it's Indiana. Why?
I respect that.
Because Indiana reminds me more of Nick Saban-led Alabama team more than any other team in the last couple of years, because it's a team where the personality is not over-exuberant. Well, the face of that team is Coach Kurt Cignetti. Mm-hmm. Nobody else. You can't tell me if Fernando Mendoza has personality, the receiver has personality. You can't probably name me multiple players on defense. That's not what that team is. That team is led with just do your job. Be the best version of yourself. We got 5 to 6 seconds of each and every play of strain and get the most from it by holding yourself accountable. Well, if they don't win tonight, I look at it through the lens of they are also ahead of the curve. We've never looked at Indiana in the way that we looked at Indiana now. Do they have the best talented team? No. But some will argue, even myself would say, or the best coach team in all of college football, and it has shown. The way that they create distractions and disrupt opposing teams, whether in the run game, whether in the defensive side of the ball, they capitalize on those mistakes, and they bring a physical brand of football that not a lot of teams expect because of the notion it's Indiana. So I don't think that it'll be a disappointment. It'll just be something that, okay, they're right on schedule for the next year.
Go ahead, S.A.
I think it would be disappointing. And the reason why I think it would be disappointing because it's not a Big Ten or an SEC school you're going up against in the national championship game. And because of that and because of the veneer or the perception of those conferences, at least before this playoffs, being considered superior, I think if you're Indiana, you're representing the Big Ten, and Michigan handled its business 2 years ago, and Ohio State handled its business last year, and you, having never won a national championship in your school's history, find yourself in the pristine position of being able, just a game away from being able to pull that off. I do think that in a lot of people's eyes, it would come across as a disappointment because let's call it what it is. They are the favorites. They're the favorites tonight against Oregon. And if they handle their business, they'll be the favorites on the national championship game against Miami. Having said all of that, I think it's something that we have to remind ourselves about when they went up against Oregon and they beat them 30-20. They were struggling. I mean, you got a running game that's been dominant all year long that just finished rushing for over about 215 yards against Alabama when they annihilated Alabama 38-3, over a week ago. And now here you are sitting around and you're reminded of the fact that their running game wasn't that effective against Oregon earlier this season. With Mendoza against the pass, who's been elite, like a top 5, top 8 quarterback in the nation against pressure. Oregon blitzed him about 41% of the time. He wasn't as effective against Oregon as he's been against everybody else. When it gets to this level of play, as you two know considerably more than me, palms get sweaty, backsides get tight. And if you're going to have struggles in the regular season and those struggles come to the postseason and you leave Oregon in this game in a position to win it because they handle their pressure in Mendoza and he looks a bit rattled there, we say, Oregon might have a chance. And you've got people like E.J. Manuel who's doing an outstanding job covering college football for us. He was on my show the other day, guys. He's got Oregon beating Indiana. That's one of the reasons why.
Well, it's not a disappointment if they don't win a championship. Shea Cornett, I'm about to put her out there, went to one Indiana football game when she was in school, and she loves sports. You know why?
One.
Because not even they cared about Indiana football. You know who cares about Indiana football right now? Everybody. Courtney Cronin wanted to throw hands with me on this show when I was just talking about their perception. It wasn't even my opinion. Mark Cuban is donating all the money he was going to have to give Luka, he's trying to give it to Indiana now so they can go win championships. This year is already a success. It's been 80 years since they won a Big Ten championship, and they did that. They ain't never won a Rose Bowl. Every expectation that's been created by this team has been because they've over-exceeded all the other expectations. Do I expect them to win? Yes. Is this season a disappointment if they don't? No. Remember, it took Saban 3 years at Bama to win a championship. They are right on. Actually, they're ahead of schedule. It ain't no disappointment.
And also, Indiana, a disappointment? Absolutely not. They have 0 5 stars on this team. 0.
That much of a hurdle to jump over, but it's probably going to be the game of the year for a while. Incredible last night. Miami goes on to play for the championship. You see the squad we got together here, Josh and Jordan. Be with those guys in a second, and we have more to come. But, Louis, I wanted to get a quick take from you. We know that tonight, Fernando Mendoza, Dante Moore, all eyes will be on those quarterbacks. How about the two that we saw last night? From a draft perspective, Trinidad Chambliss and Carson Beck. Tell everyone what you said to us right before we came on the air. If Trinidad Chambliss was 6'3", what would we be saying about him?
He's a surefire first rounder. He may have been. Look, if he was 6'3" and he had been starting all season long, Trinidad Chambliss would probably be in contention for would have been in contention for the Heisman and be in contention for the #1 overall pick. He has everything that you want, especially when you're talking about from the neck up and the way in which they talk about him down there in Oxford. He's got tremendous mental horsepower. He's got tremendous resilience. He's been through the fire. He can handle large volumes of information. He's got great mobility, good arm strength. He can read defense pre-snap. He can adjust post-snap. He can stand in place. There's everything that he can do. And he's a great leader and a great person, never been in trouble. All those things, all the boxes that you want checked from a franchise quarterback, he checks every one of those boxes. There's just one, and that is he's probably going to measure in officially at just under 6 foot. And that's going to be a problem as far as putting him up that high and taking him that high. But there's nothing else. There's nothing else that Trinidad cannot do. When you're talking about Carson Beck, look, I think he started off the season as someone who everyone thought maybe would be in contention for the #1 overall pick or the first quarterback to come off the board. Then he hits a rough stretch, which really kind of like crescendos down there at SMU where he throws those interceptions. But as he told me, look, I still feel as though I played one of my best games of the year. And then ever since that game, with the next game that next week that we called down there in Coral Gables against Syracuse, he's been on a heater ever since then. He has been lights out. They love him down there in Miami. They feel as though all the things that he has been through really is going to serve him well when it comes to the NFL level. I think he is a guy who could still sneak into the bottom of the first round. No question about that.
Okay, fascinating. We'll get Jordan's take on that as we continue this morning. Meanwhile, Pate, I want to show you something. Can we put up C5, please? Because with Ole Miss going out, this will be the third straight season in which the national championship game will be played without a representative from the Southeastern Conference. It is the longest streak for that conference since a run of 4 straight from 1999 through 2002. The Big Ten has taken advantage. They've won 2 straight titles. They're going to get one of the other. Either Indiana or Oregon is going to play for it a week from Monday. So they could be in a place where the Big Ten wins 3 consecutive national championships with 3 different teams. Let's not get ahead of ourselves. But Josh, and the SEC has sort of run the sport for quite some time. What do we say about it all this morning?
Well, the tops of the tallest trees being shaved in college football, meaning the talent being a little more spread out, probably stood to impact the SEC more than any other conference, Greeny. Now, I'm making really 50,000-foot points because the fact of the matter is the quote-unquote issues, if you want to call them that, at Texas are different than that of Georgia, are different than that of Alabama. But I will say very, very holistically, I told you this last week, I'm going to continue to tell you this. For a 10, 15, 20-year stretch, when you came to understand you had such a cumulative talent edge over whatever the next most powerful conference in college football was, I just think in football, in life, when you know you have that big a built-in edge over the competition, sometimes human nature can be that you get lazy. And it may be that you get lazy in hiring practices, not overly lazy, but just the margins. You don't care about them as much because you know you're going to roll out of bed and have that advantage the next morning. And that advantage disappeared, not over time, but kind of over the span of 12, 24, 36 months. And I think a lot of places in the SEC are still adjusting to it. Look, it's not a terrible conference. It's just their fastball's 91 instead of 97 right now. And that makes all the difference in the world.
What do you think, Jordan?
Yeah, SEC has had a talent monopoly for a long time. And I think what you're seeing change is not just the distribution of the top-level talent. Of course, quarterbacks, five-star quarterbacks and top receivers are going to other programs in the SEC. But the SEC always had the best rosters from really 20 to 40. Not just that's the starting 22, but the depth was always 5 and 4 stars that were under-recruited, that were being developed. That's what you saw. Maybe the biggest discrepancy last night was Ole Miss didn't have any depth. Their starting 4 across the defensive front are really good. They had nobody behind them, and they really had nobody behind them all year, and I think that's what you're starting to see with the SEC, with NIL. Those guys aren't sitting on a bench as 4 stars and 5 stars and developing anymore. They're going to other schools. And so I agree. Look, I'm a guy that is mostly on SEC Network when I talk college football. The Big Ten's a better conference right now. They are. They've proven it in the bowl season. They've proven it in playoffs. The SEC had a great run. 16 of 17 times they competed for national championships. Now they'll be out of it the last 3. The Big Ten is taking that crown, and it's not just in playoffs. It's the bowl games. It's the distribution of talent. The SEC no longer has that monopoly on the rosters, on the talent like we've seen for so long.
The reality is, when Josh says that this has all changed in the last 12 to 24 to 36 months, everything has changed. Right? Literally everything. College football has gone through the Industrial Revolution. The Industrial Revolution took a century. They've done it in like a year and a half, right? Literally everything in the sport is entirely different. We were talking about a sport where you couldn't buy a kid a turkey sandwich lest he would lose his eligibility, to a sport now where a guy gets paid $4 million and wants to leave 5 days later. I know they reversed that, but everything has changed. So the idea that this isn't going to create an entirely different power structure within the sport is just ludicrous. So I don't know where it will all settle, because I don't know when they will arrive at whatever the equilibrium is that they find at the end of this thing, because right now it's just madness. But that, to me, is the simplest explanation. There's almost sort of a randomness to where it's going to fall. You hire the right coach, you get a couple of breaks, John Harbaugh, Ryan Day, now maybe Curt Cignetti, and all of a sudden the Big Ten looks like the big dogs on